My name's Samira Drapeau. I'm the coordinator for the Quest Ontario Caucus. So just a quick background on Quest and the Quest Ontario Caucus. Quest conducts research, engagement, and advocacy to advance smart energy communities across Canada. What is a smart energy community, you might ask? Well, go to questcanada.org and head to the Solution tab to find out. The Quest Ontario Caucus is one of 8 provincial and regional caucuses across Canada. In Ontario, we have over 250 highly engaged caucus members representing various sectors, including municipal and provincial government, utilities and energy providers, suppliers, NGOs, and more. Our caucus has several working groups and meets quarterly to share progress, collaborate, and network. If you are not on the Ontario Caucus mailing list, please email me after the webinar and I'll make sure that you are added so you can stay current on Quest Ontario events and updates. So welcome to what's the first of what is now a 5-part summer webinar series produced by the Quest Ontario Caucus. I'm happy to announce today that we recently added an additional session titled Marketing Energy Efficiency in Canadian Homes, which will be co-hosted by the Canadian Home Builders Association. Information on the session will be available shortly on the Quest Ontario webpage. That's questcanada.org/Ontario under New with Quest Ontario. Information on the remainder of the webinars is already available there, so I encourage you to go there to find out more and to register. Note that this webinar will be recorded and will be available to the Quest network. So today's session is called Asset Management, Maximizing City Building Opportunities and Profiling the Guelph Municipal Holdings Inc. Company. I'd like to introduce you to our guest speakers. Sandy Manners is the Communications Director for Guelph Municipal Holdings Inc. And Rob Kerr is the Manager of Community Energy at the City of Guelph.
A little background on Guelph. I think many of you know this. We're a city of 123,000 people. We often enjoy some high rankings on the many top 10 lists that come out around cities, and we're quite proud of that. We also enjoy a geographic location that puts us right in the middle of what has arguably been one of the most active economic zones in the country, South Central Ontario, and we have some impressive statistics that help us define that role when we're doing our economic development work across many other sectors, including the energy sector. I want to stop a little bit and talk about places to grow. We're all familiar with it, I believe, to some degree or another. Our places to grow interaction with the province, when we were quote-unquote really negotiating our growth targets with the province that defined how we would build out our city to support that growth, was a very pivotal moment for the City of Guelph in a number of ways related to resource management. Particularly water at the time, but it was also the time of the genesis of what's become our Community Energy Initiative. And it could be described in great detail, but basically the city made 2 fundamental decisions in 2005 through council approval. One was to target a growth of 50,000 to 175,000 by 2031, and also to freeze the boundaries of the City of Guelph. So there was no annexation plans, and to date there still are no annexation plans. And so by definition, we set ourselves on a course of a higher density city. And that creates a framework for the Community Energy Initiative that's quite profound in terms of the Green Energy Act that came along a few years later and the municipal empowerment that is coming out of that sort of major piece of legislation at the time, so that the City of Guelph can now have a big role in defining its energy future and understanding clearly its growth roadmap as well. So the challenge that comes along with that is one we're all familiar with. I won't stay on this too long, but the changing economy, especially in the area of energy, is just rapid and very difficult to follow, and we all know that. And, you know, organizations like Quest play a great role in helping us with that. and there's, you know, ongoing pressures around the public expectations around service and the need for economic and social well-being, the desire for that, the investments required to pursue that goal, really create a different kind of framework for taking new and fresh approaches to how local governments can act. And I'll drill in a little deeper, but that's sort of the framework that was behind the initiation of the creation of a holding company, to actually create a tool that sort of plays in the space between public sector and private sector to develop, as it says here, innovative approaches to city building. And we're going to talk specifically about community energy as a major sort of master plan of the city in terms of its long-term view related to growth. So we initiated the creation of a holding company in 2008, and what came out of that is a bit of a background story, but those who watched Guelph in those days, I was one of them. It was a year before I arrived to work here, but there was a proposed merger between Horizon Utilities and Guelph Hydro that was quite a robust effort of negotiating and analysis and financial reviews, etc., that did not get approved by our council at the 11th hour. And I avoid using the word failure to say it was a failed merger. I think, you know, it ended up the way it did, but I think the lesson that came from it was a real profound one and really initiated what brings us to where we are today with Guelph Municipal Holdings. The lesson learned was the city and the utility operated more or less independently in considering this merger. And there wasn't any sort of governance structure or any entity that allowed that to be considered as a whole. So the city as a shareholder and the utility as a major asset owned by that shareholder. And so council set in motion an exploration of solutions to that particular challenge. So in the future, when these big opportunities or challenges, however you want to describe them, come to the city, they can be looked at collectively. And so that literally was created by council after that merger did not pass. They directed a task force that led to a working group that led to legal review of ways to do it. Just in the years prior to that story I've just told you, the province, who was recognizing this in a bunch of cities around more commercial or venture-based opportunities for cities to develop and grow, they changed the Municipal Act, and those that are on the call from municipalities know that that's our Bible. That's the thing that guides what we do as municipalities. And that the Municipal Act was amended in 2006 that allowed for city-owned corporations to work outside of the Municipal Act under the Ontario Business Corporation Act, and everybody probably knows that all businesses are guided legislatively by that act. And we now have an opportunity to develop a corporation quite literally, which GMHI is, and the legislation, which can get quite dense, really does set some boundaries around what kind of businesses cities can get into. And essentially they're businesses that help build a city, that benefit the citizens and the taxpayers of any given municipality. And so based on that experience with Horizon, council setting in direction and exploration of some solutions to that, and this legislative change sort of all came together, and the city resolved to pursue the development of a holding company, or what is sometimes generically referred to as a municipal services company. We've chosen to label ours Guelph Municipal Holdings Inc. because we imagine down the road a potential family of companies doing specific activities underneath that holding company. And so we set, going through quite an extensive governance setup, council as shareholder interaction, community consultation, a great deal of staff interaction in the creation of the holding company. It was very carefully constructed, and I usually, take this opportunity to describe that process around what sometimes critics of holding companies might make, and there's the odd news story from time to time about this, is that it's not designed to develop businesses or make commitments or any other major decisions on behalf of the community behind closed doors. It's not designed to do that. In fact, we have been overly conscious of engaging the public around what GMHI is doing, updating the community, our council as shareholder, and what activities are taking place. So I always take the point to point that out, that the kind of diligence that goes behind the work within GMHI could arguably be more diligent than that might happen under the Municipal Act. It's always an interesting argument, but it certainly is an aspiration that we have in terms of our work together. So this is the slide where I want to kind of talk about, so what is GMHI actually doing? It is a work in progress. It has long-term aspirations. We're going to give you some links at the end so you can see our annual reports and some other information that talks about the broader goal of what GMHI aspires to do. But given that this is a Quest seminar, we want to focus in on energy. So once the holding company was created, and the driving force of the creation of GMHI and the governance and the transparency and the protocols of communication and the alignment of goals started to focus around the Community Energy Plan, which we now call the Community Energy Initiative. So in other words, the policy framework that's created by the Community Energy Initiative allows for an arm's length entity to actually be a more commercially based, a more market-based partner in initiating activities that support the goals of the Community Energy Initiative. And that's the general framework of how GMHI had taken up the Community Energy Initiative. And I'll show you some pictures as we move forward around the other players. At the GMHI company side of things, we moved our hydro utility, both regulated and unregulated, to within the holding company. And this was a fundamental move that was more or less, not really noticed by the public, because neither the regulated or unregulated parts of our utility changed what they did. Their service to the community remained the same. But that started us on a road to work cooperatively with our utility through the holding company to build synergies between city policy and planning, and the CEI is the key example of that, and our utility, both regulated and unregulated as energy companies, that have a great role and a great potential in facilitating the growth and implementation of the Community Energy Plan. So we did some structural changes to, the corporate hierarchy here. So I've described this verbally. This is a picture we show often. City of Guelph is a shareholder. The creation of Guelph Municipal Holdings Inc., which I've described to you, and a bit more in governance there. They have a board of directors. The majority of those directors are from the community, or have community sector representation. The shareholder sits on the board as well, and it's staffed up by a collection of GMHI staff as well as city representatives, and it's all designed to operationalize this objective of coordinating city building activities like the CEI with the potential implementation opportunities for Edvita or Guelph Hydro to facilitate. So this is sort of a transition slide I've been going through quickly, and I want to pass it over to Sandy to talk a little bit more about what are we doing in terms of projects or collections of projects related to the Community Energy Initiative. I may jump back in to expand on that. Before I do hand it over to Sandy, though, I'll just do one more slide. Sandy's pointing this out to me. What are the GMHI goals? So there's a lot here. I've touched on all of these, I think, as we've moved forward. But I'll just highlight a few things here. You know, there's a commercial aspect to this, and I use that word purposefully. In other words, we're not creating money-losing corporations. They're designed to be, although socially oriented companies, really, in terms of their goal to city build. They are designed to be at least cost neutral, if not profitable, and to provide dividends to the city. And we know how that works traditionally. Our utility, like all utilities, provide dividends to their shareholder, and there's a long tradition of them doing that. We don't look to dismantle that at all. And the last slide is the one that's very interesting and probably where we have the most opportunity for innovation, is that because we have this entity that is acting in a more market-based way, we can start partnering with all kinds of strategic partners as opposed to lowest price partners, which the Municipal Act really drives us to, that allow for long-term thinking around some of the more ambitious aspects of the Community Energy Initiative. So I'm still holding the mic here, I apologize, but the Community Energy Plan, I don't know all the people on the call here today, but I'm going to guess that most people have a basic understanding of our Community Energy Plan, certainly as there's a standard growing around what community energy plans look like. I'll just take this slide to say we have some high-level targets that are quite ambitious. We are actually trending quite strongly towards these targets, although the trends need to escalate a little further, but we're definitely, and we're about to announce our third indicators report that we're getting help from ICLEI with, and using theirs and the FCM protocol for municipalities. But our Community Energy Plan really talks about activities and integrated activities in three categories. And those categories are conservation, one, second, distribution, and that speaks to the menu of smart grid opportunities, as well as thermal distribution networks through district energy. And the third one is local generation. And right now a great deal of activity in the form of solar PV through the FIT program, as well as combined heat and power through a very similar program like CHIPSOP, if you're familiar with that. And it's those three categories. The overlaying icing on the cake of those categories is really goes right back to my comments about places to grow. And that is the city's growth plans and the many plans that define how we build density, how we approve new investment, how we develop transportation futures, are all defined by the density goal defined in places to grow, and the opportunity to integrate our community energy plans into those growth activities, which is really what City Hall is all about. So we're very integrated. Our plan is very integrated into City Hall, and those who have heard me speak at conferences, I always talk about this, is that the integration and mainstreaming of plans like community energy plans is really critical to the long-term momentum that you need to maintain. Okay, so I'm going to stop with that, and as agreed upon with Samira, we were going to pause for some questions about everything or anything that I've said to this point, and then I'll pass it to Sandy.
Thanks, Rob. So again, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat box on your webinar dashboard there on the right. There's a chat drop-down menu. We'll give you a couple of minutes, and then we'll move on to Sandy Manners.
You want to check the audience view? Just hit that plus sign.
Oh.
They can't see.
Okay, so hearing the questions at this point, Sandy Manners will let you take it over. Thank you.
Thanks, Samira. Thank you very much for providing GMHI with the opportunity to talk to you this morning. I'm excited to tell you a little bit about the work that we do in GMHI. And the fact that Rob and I have collaborated on this webinar is a good demonstration of how both the City of Guelph and Guelph Municipal Holdings collaborate on a lot of things in our day-to-day lives. So first of all, let me talk a little bit about our areas of focus. As you might remember with the organization chart that was shown, there are two parts to Guelph Municipal Holdings at the moment. One is a regulated company, which is Guelph Hydroelectric Systems, Inc., and that's the local electric utility providing electricity to all the businesses and homes in Guelph. And the other side is an unregulated side of the business, and that's Envita Community Energy. So within Envita Community Energy, we focus our efforts on sustainable energy projects in the community. And these are under the areas of solar, PV, district energy, combined heat and power, and bioenergy. So I'll tell you a little bit about the projects that we've got going. And before going there, I would like to mention that these are really excellent examples of how leveraging city assets under Guelph Municipal Holdings is benefiting the City of Guelph. And for two reasons: we support the city's economic development objectives, and we also further the goals of the Guelph Community Energy Initiative. So lots of positives there. Rob, page down, or?
Yeah, just click on the screen.
Oh, okay, there we go. All right, so under solar PV, we've done a fair bit of work there. We've got rooftop solar as well as ground mount solar. And what we've done there is we've leased the rooftops of a number of municipal buildings. And then we also put some ground mount solar underneath the water tower that we have in Guelph, which is pictured there. So regarding municipal buildings, we've done the fire department, 3 different buildings. There's a lawn bowling club, popular in the summer. There's also the River Run Center, which is pictured also on the slide. And there's also the City of Guelph Public Works building. So all of these were done under microfit projects, and they are benefiting both Guelph Municipal Holdings and the city. We also are involved in bioenergy. There was a landfill gas or a landfill area in the city, and a number of years ago that became an Eastview landfill gas. So we're generating electricity from the methane gas that comes off of the landfill site there. Perhaps of more interest in downtown Guelph, we have a district energy system called the Guelph District Energy System. And what we're doing there is we're providing heating and cooling for the Sleeman Center, which is a city-owned facility. It's an entertainment complex. And within that, it's an energy system that has the capability or the capacity to provide heating and cooling to other buildings as well. So the map that's shown there is an artist's rendition of what the system could grow into. So currently in the center there we have the Sleeman Center. Over on the left-hand side we have a condominium that is going up now. It's called River Mill Condominiums. And so that's the second piece of the puzzle. We're hooking up that one now, digging up some streets and putting in some insulated piping there. And that'll be operational next year. And then the other lines that we've shown there, the piping going along Woolwich Street, that's a potential that we're hoping that we can do that in the future. And the pictures down below are some pictures from the Sleeman Center, the energy center that's within that. Another location for district energy is a greenfield site, and it's the Hanlon Creek Business Park. And as you can see, lots of fields there, but the business development group in the city are working hard to get new tenants in there. So what we have there is a small portable system, as we call it, and it's providing heating and cooling to the building down on the right-hand corner there, which is Worth Canada. Now, Worth Canada it was attracted to Guelph, I'm told, because of the opportunity to connect to the district energy system and get their heating and cooling from us. We also have another building that's connected to the system as well, and there's the potential to connect other buildings as they decide to locate in the park. And then last but not least, we also have some contracts that for combined heat and power under the independent electricity system operator. So these are future plans. So we have plans to build a combined heat and power plant in Hanlon Creek Business Park. And then we also have a contract to put a similar plant down in downtown Guelph. So that means that we would be generating electricity as well as providing heating and cooling for the buildings. So if you'd like to read a little bit more about our projects, we've got an annual report that we've published within the last month. You can read that at guelphholdings.com. Our website is also guelphholdings.com. If you'd like more information about the actual projects themselves, you can see lots of pictures. There's some photo galleries on our Envita site, so that would be envita.ca. And there's also ways of getting information from us. Feel free to email us, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Sandy. So we do have a couple of questions lined up for you guys. So the first one is there any information available on GMHI related to staffing level and or the operating budget?
Certainly staffing levels. We're running very lean. That is included in our annual report. We only have 7 staff in GMHI at the moment. However, within Guelph Hydroelectric Systems, there's more than 100 people who work there. And regarding budgets, there's really, we have our financial statements that are available online as well.
Perfect, thank you. The next question is, are there other municipalities following a similar model? And are there different challenges in developing said holding company for higher and lower tiered governments, i.e. regional municipalities?
I'll answer the first question first. Yeah, there's a bit of, well, more than a bit now, actually, quite a movement afoot of municipalities that are developing municipal service corporations. And quite frankly, I'm scrambling to sort of keep on top of that. And I'll just mention, last year we were at the AMO conference and we had a delegation with Minister McMeekin, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing at the time, and we'd actually advocated for their facilitating what we call a community of practice of municipalities that are at various stages of creating service companies, and they were very responsive to that. And so we're slowly following up on that, and I was hoping through Quest that we could actually get a little bit more momentum behind that. But more anecdotally, I get lots of calls with questions like yours. I would say there's probably in the neighborhood of 20 municipalities who have made, council level decisions to pursue the development of service companies. The other thing I'll say is some of those companies are created to be very purpose specific. For example, a large solar ground mount project, for example, might have a company created to support it. Sometimes there's privatization goals around, say, transit or waste. There's fewer cities that are creating holding companies like us that doesn't really define specifically what businesses it wants to get into, although we've really developed our energy component of the holding company. We are exploring all kinds of other activities in a more business development way by looking at city assets that may be leverageable. Oh, and sorry, and the last part, I'm not aware of any distinction between tiered governments and their ability to create holding companies. I think the Municipal Act is universal and that it applies to both levels.
Thanks, Rob. Another question here. So what are some of the key elements of the Guelph Community Energy Initiative that would be difficult or impossible were it not for the holding company structure?
That's a great question. There's sort of there's sort of two layers to answering that. You know, the marketplace is very active on the generation side. I referenced that earlier around PV and combined heat and power. And you know, our holding company, and Sandy gave you some examples, you know, they've entered into that amongst many other players in the community that are building PV. We have about, I think we're approaching 10 megawatts of PV in total in our community, and that's a pretty good number. It's 3-4% of our total load. But the one that does require, I believe, and we're learning this as we go, so it's a great question, is district energy. So, you know, you can't, district energy is all about common infrastructure in the terms of distribution piping, just like roads and other linear infrastructure. So what we're learning is that the city has to play a very key role, and the holding company can play a role in the long-term development of thermal energy. But I'm talking about the pipes specifically. Customers obviously are more market-based, should they, you know, buy into the value proposition for using thermal energy. And providers of heat into the system could also be more market-based. In other words, independent developers could propose to build heat-creating projects, to be generic about it, and offer to sell heat into the network. But it's the pipings of district energy that we are learning without any question really require a strong public component and a quasi-public component potential through GMHI.
Okay, well, I think at this point we can bring the webinar to a close. So thanks once again, Sandy Manners and Rob Kerr, for presenting to the group. I encourage you to contact them directly with any additional questions. And as I mentioned, this is only the first of a 5-part webinar series. So to find out more about the following webinars, go to questcanada.org/Ontario and scroll towards the bottom of the page under New with Quest Ontario for more information. So thank you to our speakers, and thank you for joining us today. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Samira, and
Thank you.
those who attended.